Good morning. Welcome to Free Advice Friday. My name's Keri Barnum for New Shelves Books, and we are here to talk about the business of being an author. Every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we do meet live at newshelves.com/FAF. You're welcome to join us anytime. And of course, we also accept emailed questions into info@newshelves.com. You can send those in and then get your questions answered. And the replays do go up on YouTube. I'm all caught up, so I'm more faithful now in getting those Free Advice Fridays up as swiftly as possible. So we have a couple of questions that have already come in by email. We are going to answer those, and then we have some industry stuff to discuss as well. So we'll tackle Chris's question first, which is about library pricing. So Chris is essentially asking about how to price your ebook specifically for libraries. So let's talk about library pricing in general. And why do we even care about libraries? Why do we want to sell to them? So the first thing is that as far as why we want to sell to libraries is number one, we love libraries. We love to support their message of serving communities and making sure that books are available no matter your social status, no matter, your income. It's a really great way. Libraries hold such a special place in my heart personally, because I was a huge reader as a kid. I mean, I read so many books. And I remember getting my first library card, and my mom gave it to me, and she said, okay, you can check out up to 15 books. And of course, I maxed it out. And every Tuesday after dance, because I danced, I did ballet every Tuesday after dance, she would take me to the library and I would max out my card and I would read all those books in that week usually. And I never would have had so much access to books without libraries. And so they do hold such a special place. But as authors, not only that mission, but yeah, libraries do pay you, and it can add up as far as how they pay you. So libraries, if it's a print book, they're just paying for the print book. They're paying, let's say your book is $20, you're getting paid $20 plus whatever royalty you either have from self-publishing or from your publisher. So that's just a one sale. Usually I've heard numbers thrown around that the average print book gets checked out between 10 and 30 times in its lifetime. That may be true for an average, but I don't know that's the median. I think there are some books that get checked out a lot, some not as much. But anyway, it still benefits you because if someone's checking out books from the library, they are still people who are reviewing your books. They can review your books on Amazon, even though they didn't buy the book. They can review them on Goodreads. They can tell their friend who may go buy the book. So it's still great as far as building your brand, your reviews, and your word of mouth. Um, Ebooks are a little bit different in digital assets. So ebooks, audiobooks, all of that, they're a little bit different in as far as how you get paid. The old standard model, and it's still true for some of the larger publishers, is that they would license the ebook. And the ebook would be, and when I say ebook, I also mean audiobook. I should just say digital copies. So they would license digital copies. And typically that license, it can be any number of time. Sometimes it's 12 months, but more often than not, a license is 24 months. So they are paying a certain amount of money. It could be $300, it could be $50, it could be more. But they're paying a certain amount of money to have access to that license for 24 months. And that means that it acts like a physical copy. For each license, they're allowed to check out the book, one person at a time. And people either have to return it or, it's returned automatically when the book is due with digital assets. And so, but they treat it like a physical book and that you can only check it out one at a time, which is why sometimes there's a really long wait for like digital ebooks or audiobooks. And you just got paid that flat fee for that 24 months or whatever period was agreed upon. Sometimes there would be multiple licenses. So they may say, all right, you can get one license for $300 or you can get 5 licenses for $1,000. So sometimes there's different things like that going on. This is usually more specific to larger publishers, and publishers may have deals specific to libraries. Some publishers do actually allow their authors to choose to allow more licenses or for lower license fees, they allow the authors to choose that. So authors can choose whether or not they want to kind of make it more accessible for libraries or not. And that's the license model. And even small and self-published authors were able to do this and did this often in, and let's just say 10 years ago. But things have definitely changed. We now see more and more people working on the cost per checkout model, meaning that when we put our books on a place like Draft to Digital, Findaway Voices, if you put your books up on Ingram Spark, rather than a license fee, we set our library price, and it's assumed that that library price is for 10 checkouts. But libraries don't actually have to license for 10 checkouts and pay the full fee. Let's say it's $30. So if it's $30 for that cost per checkout model, it's assumed that there's 10 checkouts there, which is $3 per checkout. But the way that many of these things have evolved is that you set your cost per checkout model, assuming that's about what you would get paid for 10 checkouts. But libraries only pay as the book is checked out, meaning that if they want to have your book in their catalog and someone checks it out at $30, they're only paying a tenth. They're paying $3 for that checkout. And if only one person checks out that book in 2 years, then they only paid you $3. But it also means that there's not a long wait list for people to get your book. If 20 people go over to the library and say, I want this book, as long as the librarian enables that many checkouts, they could have 20 people go ahead and check out the book at the same time. So you could earn that $30 times two. So you could earn $60. So it does allow kind of less risk for the library who had a lot of money tied up in license fees. So they were only able to put certain books in their catalog because they'd use all their license fees. And this allows them at lower risk to have books in their catalog, especially from small and indie presses. And then at the same time, the author does, of course, mean that instead of a license fee that's guaranteed, they may only get a couple of bucks because libraries may not always be checking out their book. But if their book goes viral on TikTok and everyone wants to check it out, they can really cash in big without people losing interest in the book because there's a long wait line. And that cost per checkout model is what we see on most digital distribution models, Draft to Digital, Findaway Voices, Ingram Spark. So all of that to get around to how do we price our ebooks now? Because when we were licensing books, it was a little bit different because you're getting one flat fee and it didn't matter how many times people checked out. But when we're looking at the cost per checkout model, we're assuming that we're going to get a tenth of whatever price we set. So typically what we do is whatever your retail price is, you double or triple that for your library pricing. So if your ebook on Amazon for retail is $4.99, when you put it into the library system, you would set it at $10 or $15, which means cost per checkout, you're getting a tenth of that. So if your book is, $10 on the library model, it means you're getting paid $1 per checkout. If it's 15, it's $1.50 per checkout. Now, just like we see in, because cost per checkout is used by some larger publishers, it just depends again on their contracts, the libraries, and all sorts of things. So just like we see some Kindle books listed for like $15, if they triple that, they're obviously making more. So there's still a sliding scale that we see with larger publishers and indie publishers and authors. And usually really what that comes down to is need and trust. So, the need of the book. Are people really going to check it out or not? If there is a big demand for a certain book, I mean, Frida McFadden's, well, that's a bad example because Frida McFadden's books are in Kindle Unlimited, but her audiobooks, for example, they're in big demand. So she's going to be making a lot from those perpetual checkouts if they were on this model. So it would make sense for everybody. So there's a lot that goes into it as far as the pricing, but typically take your retail price and then you're going to double or triple that. I usually triple if your ebook's on the lower end of pricing. So for example, if your book was already listed at like 14.99, I would tend to only double that and do $30. But if your book's at 4.99, I tend to triple that and go to like the 14.99, 15 kind of segue there. So that's a little bit about libraries, how they check out their books, how they purchase books, and then how they keep those decisions running as far as reaching out to libraries. By the way, I often get people asking, like, okay, so great, we build goodwill and someone buys my book from a library, but why am I going to put effort into it? What I didn't mention yet is that just in the US alone, we have approximately 116,000 libraries. Even if you sold one copy to half of those, you would be outselling most books in the US. So there are so many libraries. That's where it can really add up. And especially because when you're asking to be put in a bigger library system, like if you ask to be put in the New York Public Library system, they serve multiple branches. So sometimes they'll order 5 copies of a book for those branches rather than just one book. So there's a lot of opportunity still for authors to be a part of the library community and still make good money. So I think it's a win for everybody. I love libraries. Not every book is a great fit for libraries. So for example, um, journals, not a great fit for libraries because you're meant to write in them and libraries don't want that. They don't want people defacing the books. Um, there's a big need for like popular reads, just things that are trending in reading and people are asking for. There's a huge demand of people asking for niche nonfiction, like something on specific topics, like how, I don't know, plumbing 101, what you need to know to keep your pipes from freezing over. So like niche topics. They also tend to have more nonfiction because a lot of people use libraries for research still. And they also tend to support local authors who have books about the local area is very popular as well. As far as how to sell books to libraries, if you want to learn more about it, I actually have a free training on my YouTube channel that I put up that's a full training on how to sell books to libraries. So if you go to youtube.com/new shelves books and you search for library, you will find my full library training that I have up there for free. It's a couple years old, but it's still, some of the figures have changed a little bit, but the basic information is still the same. So absolutely free. Go grab that. And then New Shelves does have a program where we market books to libraries a couple times a year. So you have access to that also. And I can put a link in here for that one also. We dropped in there. Let's see. And Chris's follow-up question. So when I approach my library as a self-publisher, do I negotiate the price directly with the librarian? No, you set your price at Draft to Digital, Ingram Spark, whoever you're using as an ebook distributor. You set your price there and they go and they buy it from Bibliotheca, from Overdrive, somewhere like that. And so they buy directly from the wholesaler that they work with as a library, and that price is firm and set on Ingram Spark. You're not negotiating prices at all. Let's see. And then I think it's at newshelves.com/libraries. I think I have a lot of this information as well. Maybe. Yeah. newshelves.com/libraries. I have a lot of information. I also have a librarian like cover letter pitch sheet sample that you can download there. Information on our library mailings. I also believe I link to the YouTube training as well. So lots of information there that's free to access. Let's see. Do libraries buy from Amazon or Barnes and Noble? That is a good question. Most libraries like to buy wholesale, so they will buy from Ingram. The largest library wholesaler that libraries work with is Baker and Taylor. Baker and Taylor is not easy to access for print books for smaller indie publishers because they are a wholesaler. They typically work with larger accounts. and they also typically work with distributors. So for a print-on-demand small publisher, it's harder to get in Baker and Taylor for print. It's not impossible, but you have to have a big quantity. You have to have a lot of proof of sales and viability and that there's a need in the market for them to take you on that way. But your ebook and your digital assets can be in the Baker and Taylor ebook system. And that happens. I'm not sure if Ingram Spark distributes over to Baker and Taylor, but I do know that Draft to Digital does. That's who I use for most of my ebook distribution. If I'm going wide and I want to get in libraries and Barnes and Noble and places like that, I use Draft to Digital. And so they can buy them there. Print books. Here's the thing about libraries is libraries usually have rules about where they can order from. They often will not order direct from a publisher or an author, and they won't pay direct because they don't have permission to. Libraries are often run by schools or governments by different funding, and they cannot just choose who to set up as a vendor. So they usually don't purchase books directly from authors or publishers because they're not allowed to. And so that's why they usually use the wholesaler of Ingram or Baker and Taylor. Now, with that said, most of them do have a discretionary fund where they can and will purchase from Amazon. The last time I talked to a group of librarians, about a third of them said that they would order books on Amazon if there was a real proof of need or they really thought the book would do well in the area. So not all of them would. It is harder to get them to purchase from Amazon, but if a bunch of people are coming in asking for the book, it's a popular read and they can find it on Amazon. Sometimes they'll order copies there. Same for Barnes and Noble. I think they probably actually have like corporate accounts set up through Amazon, and so they're more likely to order that there, as far as I know. But I think, again, if they want a book bad enough, I've especially seen this in university libraries. If they get enough requests for a book for research or something like that, even if the book's not available in the usual places, they'll find a way to order it from Amazon or somewhere else with discretionary funds. So about a third. Some of them do order from Amazon, but it's not their go-to. Let's see. How can we style a request for reviews on Instagram or Facebook, and what picture suggestions do you have? Actually, let's talk about reviews because that was a topic that I had on my list today. So let's talk about reviews next. Talking about reviews, not only how to get them, how to ask for them, but how to respond when you get them. I had an instance this week where an author had put out a request for review. This was really for endorsement before the book comes out. And they had met an author who wrote kind of in the same space that they did. Kind of. It was like not, it was a nonfiction topic, and it's something that kind of had overlap, but not directly. And the author had put out a request to this person who's also an author who'd written a book and asked them for an endorsement. And the person replied saying yes, they would read it. They sent them a copy of the book. And then the response was not only not positive, it was it wasn't even just harsh, it was rude. So a couple of things I want to talk about. We will get into reader reviews, but first I want to talk about more of endorsements and reviewing with other authors or when you get a harsh critic. So there are trade reviews. Kirkus is like known for this, where you put in for a review, whether you pay for it or not, and they can be really, really harsh with their reviews. And I can tell you there's people on this call who have paid for a Kirkus review who have not published it because it was so brutal. Like there was nothing good for it. Nothing good to pull from it. And meantime, they paid for the Kirkus review because they wanted a trade review because it does help with like bookstores and libraries and things. And it was harsh. Now, at the same time, because Kirkus has that reputation, when they do give a positive review, even if it is a paid for review, it usually holds a little bit more weight than otherwise. So there is a pro and con to that. But it's still hard to take when your feedback is so harsh and negative. Actually, I have one of the authors I work with who has done very well for themselves. Their very first review was a Kirkus review who absolutely ripped their book apart. They said it would amount to nothing, it was drivel, ripped the book apart. That book, by the way, um, just surpassed 3 million page reads on Amazon, has created an entire series, and has done very, very well for itself. And I think this is important to note that the people in the book industry, the people at Publishers Weekly, the people at Kirkus, the people at even Forward Reviews, which is really known to work with indies, um, there are so many people within there that have opinions of what books should be from a literary perspective. Now, I've seen this go both ways. I have seen books be reviewed brilliantly, win awards, get great Kirkus reviews, get great Publisher Weekly, like starred reviews, which is a big thing. And then guess what? No one buys it. This book is just like, can't sell it. But it's gotten all of these accolades in the literary world, but it's not popular in the mainstream. And I've seen the opposite happen as well, where the literary world tears a book apart, is junk, and then it goes on to sell millions of copies. And so I think that we have to realize that when we are putting in for trade reviews or reviews from people in the industry, that sometimes their expectation of what they think a good book is not necessarily what's popular or selling. For some people, they don't care. They just want the big trade reviews to say that their book is pretty and good job, your book is great, and they don't care that it sells. But for most authors, I would say we want our books to sell. I can't tell you how many authors I've talked to where like, I don't understand why this book is not selling. It's not getting reviewed very well by like Amazon when I've gotten all these awards and I've gotten all these great endorsements and reviews, and they don't understand. And I think that there is definitely a gap between the literary review and endorsement cycle and popular reads. And popular reads are actually what drive a book to be a success. Um, Bookstores and libraries may pick up a book because it got brilliant trade reviews, but I'll tell you what, they're not going to buy the next book, or they're not going to keep the stock copies if the book then doesn't become a popular read that sells. They're in it for people to check out the books at libraries or to buy them from the store if they're, in that market in a bookstore. So I think that's important to note, because when you get a harsh trade review, often it's before your book comes out, and it can just be devastating. Like your first feedback outside of your circle, outside of your friends, the people you work with, whatever it is this harsh critique. And it can be um, so hard to get that feedback. So I just want to encourage you all that sometimes these people are not God. They don't actually get to make final judgment. Um, they have opinions and they have a lot of experience, but sometimes what they're looking for is not necessarily what your audience will look for. So I'm not saying don't submit for trade reviews. They can be very helpful in marketing. I love trade reviews, but I am also saying that if you get a harsh one or one you don't agree with, don't let it let you stop. In the same vein, when we are asking for endorsements from other authors or from people in the industry, because this is something we talk about a lot, right? Like endorsements can help you market and sell a book. We want to send to other well-known authors and ask them to review a book like this person did. And the feedback, I have to be, again, I've got to try to be diplomatic. The feedback was not just critical, because I give critical feedback. Anyone who's worked with me knows that I don't shy away from critical feedback. Like if I think there's a problem, I'm going to tell you what it is, because I would rather me tell you than just, oh yeah, it's great. And then like you're getting terrible reviews. So I will give honest critical feedback. But this was filled with accusations of um, the headshot possibly being AI. It wasn't. Um, Literally sent just information from the book and was like, your book is no good, essentially. Again, really, really not even just critical feedback. It was harsh and rude. And this author called me and was saying, like, should I just give up? Like, this is someone who's written a book kind of on my topics. Should I just give up? Should I not publish this? Is it terrible? And my immediate response was, um, well, I won't say my immediate response because it wasn't nice, but my also response from this is your book doesn't have to be from everyone, and not everyone's going to love your book. And even if you go into that knowing that I may get, negative reviews, it's very different from a faceless person on Amazon to give you a 1 star and say they didn't like the book, and someone that you have some type of connection to, you look up to, you have a relationship with because you've worked together or something like that, to come back and say your book is junk. It's hard. We do have to learn to accept critical review and even negative and harsh reviews, but that doesn't mean it's not hard. It doesn't mean that you can't take a day. uh yeah, it's not, it doesn't mean that it's not hard. You can't take a day to be in your feels and be like, man, that hurt, but that shouldn't stop you. The questions that I then asked after, my pep talk of that person's a jerk, and doing what any nice person would do. My next question was, okay, well, let's look at this person and let's ask ourselves, are they your ideal audience? And that's a really big, important thing. Because when I asked this question, the immediate response was, no, they just write in kind of the same topic. So this person writes in kind of the same topic, but they are not the ideal demographic. They're not the ideal age. They're not in the ideal place of life that this book would help. They were not the ideal reader. And I said, well, maybe this person, like, they can't benefit from your book or enjoy your book in the way that your ideal reader would or could. If I give my 14-year-old daughter a book meant for 7-year-olds, she's going to say it's garbage. She's not going to think, oh, I could really see how a 7-year-old would enjoy this. She's just going to say, I didn't like it. And it was no. We have to think, is this person my ideal reader? The next question that I like to ask myself and other authors is that the question, can you learn, change, or improve anything? So can you learn something? Can you take something away that was positive, even if all of their feedback was negative? Maybe they said, "Oh, this book was terrible, it was garbage, I didn't learn anything, and there are a lot of grammar issues." Okay, well, maybe you can learn that there are some grammar issues and you need to proofread it again, which means you can change something. It means that you can take some really harsh feedback and you can turn it into something positive. If it is simply nastiness, if they just didn't like it, if the book simply wasn't for them, it's okay to say, and I would always respond. You do respond to these things. If you have asked someone if they've taken the time to read your book, even if they give you nasty, harsh feedback with like no positives, nothing positive at all, we still respond, and we still respond with, thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that you took the time to read my book and give me this feedback. And then you sign off and you let them go. These are not your people. Um, because even if it's harsh feedback and critical feedback, if they had given you, I thought your book had a good premise, but I saw a lot of proofreading errors, which concerns me. Do you have someone doing a proofread? That's still critical feedback, but it's not harsh. It's like got hope at the end. And that's very different. We have to be open to critical feedback, but when it's harsh, thank you for your honesty. I appreciate your time. Because regardless of what they responded to you, if they actually took the time to read your book, then they have done you a favor. And we have to be the bigger person and grateful for that, even if we're not going to use their feedback. So again, is this person your ideal audience? And can you learn anything from what they gave you? Can you change anything? They may say, I absolutely hate, I don't know, they may say, I absolutely hate your main character. Okay, great. You can't really change your main character in a book when you're putting out for endorsements. Now, if you have 10 people coming back saying the same thing, they all hate your main character, they all thought there was an issue with something, you might want to take the time to look at that. But if it's just one person, let it be that one person. Make sure that you are not only going to people who have a name in the industry, but who might actually have something in your genre, who might be your ideal reader. And as, and as is being pointed out in the comments section, and I'm going to read it, a dirty secret is big name authors provide blurbs without having read the book. And it is literally, pun intended, impossible to read every book that asks for a blurb. So very true. Many authors, actually, if they work with the same agent or work with the same publisher, many times it is sent within, the publisher will send you a book and say, I need you to blurb this. Like they are having their authors blurb other books to give them more credibility with marketing. And a lot of times they kind of have to. And so they're blurbing these books and sometimes they don't read them. It's very, very common with nonfiction in particular to get blurbs by sending just a section that pertains to that person or a sampling because then they don't have to read the whole book. They're offered the whole book, but again, it would be really hard to read all of them to blurb them. So that does happen quite a bit as well. So we've covered trade reviews. We've covered endorsements that might be harsh. And of course, I don't want to scare you off. This person also got 2 responses from people in the industry who were thrilled to read it, who had glowing, beautiful things to say about this book, and they still have some possible options out there. So they got some really nice responses that didn't make the sting go away from the harsh response. So there's that kind of reviews. And then let's talk about how you get reviews from readers. You know, those Amazon stars that we do care about. Why? Because it changes our algorithms. Studies have shown that 86% of people will look for reviews before buying a product, and they trust reviews online as much as they do from a recommended friend. So if I go to my sister and say, man, I love this book, you should read it, people on Amazon are trusting my review online as much as that. There have actually been some very interesting studies about people who, even when they're in a physical store, they're in Target, Walmart, a bookstore, looking at a product, they will go online and read reviews on their phone while they're in a store before purchasing that product. That is the power of reviews. They absolutely matter. Now, of course, there's a lot of talk of how many do you need and what number? And yes, there is something to that where we really truly believe you get an algorithm bump when you hit, actually 15 is the number of trust. This was, I don't know if it still is, but it actually used to be listed on the Amazon ads platform. If you dug into some of the help pages, essentially saying we don't recommend books with less than 15 reviews running ads because, or products, I don't think it said books, but products with less than 15 reviews because consumer trust is low and your ads are less likely to convert. I don't run ads on books with less than 15 reviews. I've just told people no, go get more reviews. 15 is like that initial moment of trust. At 50 reviews is when Amazon will start doing marketing with your book where you don't get to opt in or something. But if your book has at least 50 reviews, when Amazon's algorithms are choosing to promote a book in emails, because you read this, you might enjoy this. You have to have at least 50 reviews and then your book is eligible for that. When we hit 100 reviews, we strongly suspect that we get a nice new bump in algorithms with 100 reviews. And again, consumer trust goes up when you're in double digits. We see it again at 300, 500, 700, 1,000. Again, it's consumer trust. Why those numbers exactly, I don't know. There's probably some deep psychology to it, but you can never have enough reviews. but every author knows it's hard to get reviews. And everyone wants the secret to reviews. What's the secret? What can I pay for to get reviews? There is no secret. There is no secret. Um, the way we get reviews, there are two ways to get reviews, and they both tie in together. More sales means more reviews. More readers means more reviews. Approximately 10% of readers will go on to leave a review. So only 10%. If you have 100 book sales, you might get 10 reviews or ratings. You might. So looking at that, look at your sales and look at your review ratio. If you want more reviews, more sales. No one likes this because you need reviews to get sales, but to get reviews, you need sales. I know it's a conundrum, but that's how it works. The other thing is asking. Ask in your back matter. At the back of the book, if you enjoyed this book, please leave a review. It helps other readers find my books and means a lot to me. Putting an actual ask in the back of the book does, believe it or not, work because a lot of people don't know that it matters. They just don't think about it. So putting an ask in there, super important. Having it on places like social media, saying, hey, people often ask me how they can support me as an indie author or as an author, period. And the best thing you can do, no matter how you read my book, if it was from a library or you bought it, or, whatever way you got it, one of the best things you can do to support me as an author for free is to go online and leave a review, to tell a friend. And so asking online, another thing that I found is that um, people like to be appreciated and called out publicly. We like it. It's why we have award ceremonies. We like to be appreciated and called out publicly. So putting a little snippet of someone's review of your book on social media, like actually like screenshotting the review or taking a little snippet and say, wow, just saw this review today on Amazon. It made my whole week. I don't think people realize how much it really does matter to see those reviews online. Thank you, Sharon, for your kind words. And then you show an image with those words or a quote from the review. People like to be called out. If you know who it is, I would absolutely tag them. And if you don't know who it is, then hopefully they'll see it. But that's not really the point. Yes, if they see it, they love that you recognize them. But more than that, every other reader who sees it in their head, there's a little something that goes, well, I wonder if I leave a review, if they'll say nice things about me. I wonder if they'll notice me. And there's some psychology to it of people wanting to be recognized and appreciated. So then we go, oh, well, then I'll go leave a review and maybe they'll notice me. And so we get more reviews. Ask for reviews, call out and appreciate reviews. This also applies to your Substack, your newsletter, whatever it may be. Don't be afraid to do that. I just worked with an author who just, I've worked with them for a long time, but after their book launch, one of the things we always do at book launch is, of course, go get the book. Here we go. The next email, instead of asking for reviews, what we always do is put a couple of the really nice reviews. This book has been such a huge success. Thanks to all of you. I appreciate you so much. Your reviews really have just been giving me life lately. Here's a couple. Here's a sampling of what people are saying, and then you highlight some of the reviews because the people on your newsletter are probably the ones who have written them, but also we have, rather than saying, go write a review, please write a review, I'd love your review. We are just appreciating the reviews that are there. And then at the bottom, it just says, if you've also read the book and you haven't left a review yet, I would love to know what you thought of the book. Click here, and it leads them to leave a review. So appreciating often goes further than nagging. We don't want to nag. We want to ask. Sometimes we ask twice, but then we don't want to nag. And a good way to ask without asking is to appreciate. So I highly recommend that. One of the things that I want to really, really caution you about, because not only is it against Amazon terms of service, it's against most sales platforms terms of service, and it is also it's just bad form. Paying for reviews. It is absolutely not allowed to pay for reviews. And if Amazon suspects you of that, they can block people from leaving reviews. They can pull your book. They can close down your KDP account. You cannot pay for Amazon reviews. You can pay for like trade reviews, like Kirkus. You can pay for a blog tour where people will then, might leave a review on Amazon in addition to their blog or social media. You cannot pay someone to give you a review. You cannot say, we can't even say, if you buy my book and review it, I'll send you $20 for the book. That's not allowed. It's considered payment. It is playing with fire, my friends, and don't do it. The other thing that authors get in trouble for way too often is you cannot review swap, meaning you cannot say, if you review my book, I will review your book, because Amazon's algorithms track this. So if they notice that two authors are reviewing each other's books and they notice it consistently, like, oh, this author is reviewing this book, this book, this book, and those people are that account, because they're tracking your account. And so if your account is leaving reviews for people who are then leaving reviews for you, it triggers the algorithm and it sends the bots into overdrive saying, hey, 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 let's not do that. And it can get your book pulled down. It can get your account closed. Do not review swap. It's not worth it. It's dumb. Ask your audience, encourage your audience, and know that it's going to take time. Now, are there places that you can work with to encourage reviews? Places like NetGalley, Book Sirens. There's a couple more. There's a couple that get around the review swap by what they do is they have a platform where authors put their book up, and they have a platform where authors are never personally connected, but there's 10, not 10, there's 100 books in the system of authors who are asking for reviews. And you also are expected to review. So you get on a point system. I think it's Pubby that does this. Um, so some of the ways that it does is Pubby does this where you kind of have a point system. So if I want my book reviewed, I put it up on Pubby, and then I have to then go earn points essentially to get my book reviewed. So I can go pick any book I want to in the Pubby system. And once I read and review it and I share the review with Pubby, I get points, and based on my points is when my book is eligible for review. So it is authors reviewing authors, but because there's no direct connection or direct swap of my accounts leaving you a review, your accounts leaving me a review, we avoid having the issue of that cross swapping that's considered not illegal, but against the terms of service. So there are services like that. I think there's one called Good Night for kids books. And I've seen this work for building up reviews, but I have to say it does work. It does take time because you actually have to go and like leave a review. So it does take time. I've seen it work, but I also have to say that if the people leaving your reviews are not your ideal customers, it can screw up your algorithms because you're getting more reviews, but the people who are reading your book who are getting, because you don't give them a free copy. They have to read it on Kindle Unlimited, or you put your ebook down at like 99 cents for the period and they pay 99 cents. The people who are leaving you reviews, if they're not your ideal customer, Amazon's algorithms are like, man, we thought this was a mystery suspense book, but this person almost exclusively is buying kids books and toys and diapers, and they don't usually ever read suspense books. It starts to confuse the algorithm because they're suddenly going, maybe this book is meant to be in the kids book section. We don't realize all of the data that's connected based on our sales and how it does that. So I have seen books that were being reviewed. I actually saw a YA book who was in one of these systems, and the people who were reviewing it were people who did not have teenagers, who were not typically reading YA. They were obviously, based on the algorithms that started to show up, they were older women who typically read cozy mysteries and maybe some like women's fiction. And this book, this YA book, started to show up. Amazon sometimes will change your categories based on what the general audience is buying and what they've also bought. Start to change the categories. The also bots were so messed up because the also bots were based on these ladies who were buying like cozy mysteries and things. So be aware of that. Pros and cons. If you're going to use it, maybe for only a little while, maybe something specific like people who are specifically doing kids' books. I don't know. But those can help you get reviews. But your most consistent, your best reviews are going to be from building your own audience and asking at the end of your own book, recognizing and appreciating those reviews. Also, this is why we build up our email list, right? Because when you have an email list, you have a direct audience who not only is likely to buy your book, but who you then have connection with to ask for reviews, to highlight what other people are saying, to recognize your audience, and to ask for reviews. The author who just recently that I was talking about just recently sent out the newsletter saying, thanks for making this a success and blah blah blah. This author, their first book, their first book, it was hard to get reviews. It took us like a year to get 50 reviews. It took a long time coming. The book that just came out is later on in the series, has an audience, an email. This book had 50 reviews in like a week. It was just like a snap in the hat because they had an audience. Building your audience over time, staying connected to your audience, these things matter. So when we're talking about reader reviews, we would all like a secret. We would all love to be able to I'll just pay my $99 and get my reviews. Thank you. But it doesn't work like that. And the best reviews that are going to train your algorithms, that are truly going to help you in the long term, are going to be from your actual readers. So ask more sales, give you more reviews, give you more sales. It's a cycle. And I wish there was an easy button, but there's not. So make sure that you're just asking. Yeah. And never ever accept, also, don't accept payment for a review. Just icky waters. Let's not go there. Yeah. All right. And again, if you're like doing something like you want a social media graphic or a video, highlighting great reviews, telling people why it matters, like a video of you simply going like, I want to thank everyone who's left a review of my book, and I want to tell you why it matters. And then you tell them why it matters and how easy it is for them to do, and that it's free, a free way for them to support you. That's a great kind of ask, no matter how you're doing it. And can Amazon delete reviews? Absolutely. If they have any suspicion that those reviews were gotten with anything that's against their terms of service, like they suspect a swap or payment, or they think they're suspicious, they can delete those reviews. Once they delete them, you cannot ask for them to come back. They don't keep them in their system. So it absolutely happens sometimes. Sometimes it's a glitch in the computer system. True story. I've seen that happen. Sometimes it's, suspicion. And again, this is not Tom in the office deciding. It's bots. It's just a bunch of bots. So that certainly matters. The other thing I want to talk about today, just before we go, is all the scams out there. It is heartbreaking, and I know I talk about this a lot. It is heartbreaking to me that so many people want to profit off of authors' dreams rather than running a business where they help authors achieve their dreams. I get paid to help authors achieve their dreams, and I feel good about it. I love my job. I truly feel like I help authors. So when I get paid for a service I offer, I feel good about it. But there are a lot of people who are profiting off of authors' dreams in the sense that they're preying on them. They'll tell people, "Oh, I think your book is great. I think it should be a bestseller. And if you pay me this, I can guarantee that you'll sell X amount of copies. Or if you hire me to do this, I can guarantee you'll make six figures." We see this all the time. We see it all the time. And unfortunately, one of the ones that we've talked about it before, it comes from, it is not Barnes and Noble, but there is a company that will say they work with Barnes and Noble, or they'll say, "We're from the home office at Barnes and Noble. We want to put your book in all of our stores." all we need from you is we actually need a big print run. So we need you to pay for the printing of book. And once you pay for the printing, we'll put it in all our stores and then, you'll get all of the profits or different things like that. The Barnes and Noble one has been going around for a while. Um, but I have seen many, it's not just one, I've seen multiple authors fall for it, sending 20, $30,000 by wire to someone who then, I mean, they've stolen it and you can dispute it, different things, but you can't always get your money back. And I have seen a resurgence of that. I have seen this in particular. I'm still waiting to hear back from the actual company for confirmation, but I've seen this just recently with another company. The dupe was very good, very good. Um, Again, I'm still waiting for confirmation, but there were enough red flags. And I want to tell you about these red flags because I want you to know what to look for. So I won't tell you about the company yet. I want confirmation before I name any companies or anything. And I don't think the company's at fault, by the way. It's just scammers. Um, but the red flags that we look at the exact name of the company. Many times they'll add on an extra word. So instead of like, I'll use Barnes and Noble as an example. Instead of Barnes and Noble, it'll be barnesandnoblebooks.com. They'll add on a word or they will misspell a word just slightly. So then they're selling you something from a domain name that looks legitimate. They have a website even that looks legitimate. It's very close to the original, but it's not exactly. Um, and that is kind of the hallmark. I believe, I'm not a lawyer, couldn't say for sure, but I believe it has to do with like what they can actually be charged with is to not exactly say that they're the other company, but to imply they're the other company. So they will do things like having a website, for example, that is very, very similar to the original. This one that I've looked at recently, almost a copycat of the original website. Same header, same pages. You know where I caught them? Their buttons didn't work. Their contact buttons didn't work. Their buttons on the page weren't connected because they didn't have anywhere legitimate to go. Their social media buttons, nowhere legitimate to go. So they didn't have anything connected. I also noticed in the footer that it was different as far as who to contact, the numbers. And so that was a red flag. The other thing is that while the logo that this scam, that I'm assuming is a scam, waiting for confirmation, used was very, very similar, but different. Used the same colors, the same overall feel, but it was slightly different. I didn't catch it at first. I saw the logo and I was like, yeah, I recognize that. When I looked more carefully, I noticed the differences. Um, when they signed a contract with someone, it had the same name as the CEO of the other company, but it was spelled differently. These all should be red flags, but you don't know them unless you're looking for them. They played a good game. Things were kind of vague, but it seemed pretty legit. There was a contract involved. There was different company things. They work really hard at being terrible people. And so these are the red flags, though. If you ever have questions, if you're ever unsure, yes, of course, Google, go into author groups, ask people if they've ever heard of these companies. But the problem is that then people are saying Barnes and Noble did this. Barnes and Noble's a respected company. Yeah, it sounds great. Um, the offer is too good to be true usually, but same thing with other companies. Don't be afraid because that was as soon as I heard a couple of things, I was like, this is not adding up and it has me concerned. Where are you willing to send me the contract? And the person did send me the contract. And that was when I was like, no, 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 no. Like I started seeing discrepancies. I went to the original company and I said, I would like to know if you're associated with this domain, this website, this. And I mean, I was just surprised they responded so quickly and they said, absolutely not associated. This is going up to our security systems and teams, and we will let them know. Sometimes, like we see this a lot with like KDP publishing and stuff like that, they are companies that are trading on KDP and Amazon self-publishing, but they're not KDP or Amazon. They're just throwing that in their name so people think that they're going through a legitimate source. Um, be careful out there, y'all. I mean, of course, I know you all do your due diligence, but just know these people are really good at scamming. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. And I hate to say that. I always want to say, and I usually respond with, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that this is legitimate and you've just gotten this big break because I've seen that too. I've seen really big breaks. But do your due diligence. Don't be afraid to go to the home company, to their actual website, like the actual website. Find that person on LinkedIn who's the CEO, message them. I promise they don't like their name being used in scams either. So do those things. Don't be afraid. I mean, honestly, if Barnes and Noble really sent you a deal and you confirmed with them and like went to their actual website and went to their contact section and said, "Hey, can you confirm that this is like an actual person deal, whatever?" They are just going to be like, "Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we're glad you checked." They're not going to be mad at you. They're not going to take away a deal if it's legitimate. And it's so easy to scam authors because authors want it to be true. I know you do. I want it to be true for you. But be aware, be wary, be smart, ask people and all of those things. So I just think that's one of the things. If or when I find out confirmed that this scam is going on with this company's name, I will let you know. Right now, I'm not saying anything until I get confirmation from the company further on some of the details. But be careful out there, y'all. There's a lot of great companies and people to work with, but there's a lot of people out there just to make a quick buck, and it makes me sad. But anyway, you guys, again, we'll not be here next Friday, which is July 4th. It is American Independence Day. We will be off. We will be back the week after that. I think that's July 11th. So if you have questions between now and then, you can still email them in. I'll still hold them for the next time we meet. So don't hesitate to do that. We will answer all your questions. Have a great weekend and go ask for a review. Go and, highlight someone's beautiful review of your book and see if you get any responses. I've seen it work really well. So I think you will, and I hope you will. All right, you guys, goodbye. I will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.